The Zenith Academy orbited the gas giant Kepler 442, a gleaming station where the galaxy's elite sent their offspring to learn. Its corridors were pressurized to accommodate 17 different species, its gravity generators set to a comfortable 0.6 standard, perfect for the fragile Velorians, the methane-breathing Zoth, and the crystalline architects who made up most of the student body. Orla hated it. She sat in the back of Professor Thrix's astrophysics lecture, her muscles aching from the constant effort of moving carefully, of not breaking things. At 0.6 gravity, everything felt wrong. Her bones, designed for Earth's crushing 1G, felt too light. Her movements, even restrained, seemed violent compared to her classmates' graceful drifting. "The human," someone whispered behind her. Orla didn't turn around. She'd learned that on her first day. Daniel Marsh sat 3 rows ahead, the only other human in a student body of 2,000. But unlike Orla, Daniel had been raised on Mars colony, born under 0.38 G, educated in proper galactic standard etiquette, his body adapted to civilized space. He'd looked at her exactly once during orientation, his expression carefully neutral, before turning away. She was an embarrassment to him, a reminder that humanity's homeworld was classified level 9 on the Deathworld Index. "I heard she ate meat in the cafeteria," another voice hissed. This time it was Sylvie, a Velorian whose translucent wings shimmered with disgust. "Raw animal flesh. It's barbaric." Orla's fingers tightened around her datapad. The carbon fiber casing groaned. She forced herself to relax before it shattered. Professor Thrix continued his lecture, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The gravitational constant determines stellar formation rates. Now, can anyone calculate the Schwarzschild radius for a star of 15 solar masses? Orla's hand twitched upward, then stopped. She knew the answer, had known it since she was 12, studying in the underground bunkers of Sydney while Category 6 hurricanes ravaged the surface. But raising her hand meant attention. Attention meant questions. Questions meant explaining that, yes, humans evolved on a world where the weather could kill you, where microscopic organisms waged constant war against your immune system, where the gravity was so intense that most species' bones would snap under their own weight. "No volunteers," Professor Thrix's voice carried disappointment. "Very well, the answer is 44.4 kilometers, Orla said quietly. The classroom fell silent. 17 different species turned to stare. Professor Thrix's mandibles clicked in surprise. "That is correct. Miss Chen, perhaps you'd care to explain your methodology." Before Orla could respond, Kale, a golden-scaled architect who sat at the front, turned in his seat. She probably looked it up on her datapad. Deathworlders aren't known for cognitive function, just brute survival instinct. Laughter rippled through the class. Not cruel exactly, more like the amusement you'd show a pet that had learned a trick. Orla felt her heart rate spike. On Earth, an elevated heart rate meant adrenaline, meant the activation of fast-twitch muscle fibers that could generate enough force to crack titanium. Here, it meant breathing exercises, counting to 10. Remembering what the orientation officer had told her, "You are representing your entire species. Act accordingly." "I didn't use my datapad," she said evenly. "The formula is basic calculus. 2 times the gravitational constant times the mass, divided by the speed of light squared." Kale's scales rippled with colors Orla's translator couldn't interpret. How quaint. The Deathworlder can do arithmetic. Can you also fetch, sit, stay? The classroom erupted in chirps and whistles, alien laughter that made Orla's skin crawl. Professor Thrix raised a tentacle for silence. "That's enough. Miss Chen, your answer was correct. Kale, see me after class." But his eyes held something else, not respect, curiosity, the way a xenobiologist might observe a specimen. The lecture continued. Orla stared at her desk, willing herself invisible. The attack came during physical education. The Academy's gymnasium was a marvel of gravitational engineering, different zones set to different levels for different species. The Valorians practiced aerial maneuvers in 0.3 G, the Zoth lifted weights in 0.8 G, and in the center, in the high-intensity zone, set to 0.9 G, the instructors trained students in emergency protocols. Orla was assigned to the 0.6 G standard zone, again. Can't let the Deathworlder in the high-intensity area, the instructor had explained. Liability concerns. Your bone density alone could cause serious injury to others. So she jogged in slow motion while her muscles screamed for real exertion, while her cardiovascular system, designed to pump blood upward against Earth's gravity, barely registered the exercise. Kale and his friends, 3 other architects and 2 Valorians, drifted over. In 0.6 G, their movements were effortlessly graceful. Orla felt like a rhinoceros trying to dance ballet. "I've been thinking," Kale said, his voice carrying that same amused tone from class. "We should test a hypothesis. Deathworlders are supposed to be so strong, right? So durable." Orla kept jogging. "Leave me alone." "But that's not very educational." Kale moved closer, well within Earth's concept of personal space. On his homeworld, the architects lived in cities where individuals existed in constant contact. Here at the Academy, his proximity was deliberate, aggressive. "My xenobiology text says humans have a threat response called fight or flight. I want to see which one you choose." One of the Valorians, Sylvie, giggled. "She'll probably run, that's what prey species do." Orla stopped jogging. Her heart rate was already elevated from exercise. Now it thundered. "I'm not prey." "Prove it," Kale said. What happened next took 1.3 seconds. Kale's hand, meant to shove Orla backward in the standard dominance display common to a dozen species, moved forward. Orla's hand, moving on Earth-trained reflexes, caught his wrist and stopped it. The gymnasium's ambient noise seemed to vanish. Orla wasn't squeezing. She was barely holding on, but Kale's expression transformed from amusement to shock to something that looked like fear. He pulled back. His wrist didn't budge. "Let go," he whispered. "You're in my personal space," Orla said quietly. "On Earth, that's a threat. You wanted to see my threat response. This is me showing restraint." She released him. Kale stumbled backward in the low gravity, cradling his wrist. No bones broken. Orla had been careful, but the bruises would be spectacular. The other students formed a circle, silent, watching. Then Daniel Marsh stepped forward. Orla hadn't even noticed him in the gymnasium. But there he was, his Martian-raised frame still taller than most non-humans, his expression carefully composed. "That's enough," Daniel said, not to Kale but to Orla. "Control yourself." Something in Orla's chest twisted. "He grabbed me first." "And you responded with violence. You're confirming every stereotype they have about Earth." Daniel's voice was cold, clinical. "You're making it harder for all of us." "All of us?" Orla felt her voice rising. "You're not from Earth, Daniel. You're from Mars. You grew up in 0.38 G, drinking recycled water, never experiencing a thunderstorm or seeing a predator or feeling real gravity. You don't get to lecture me about representing humanity." Daniel's jaw tightened. "At least I know how to act civilized." The word hung in the air between them. Civilized. The Galactic Council's favorite term. Civilized species didn't come from Deathworlds. Civilized species didn't evolve as endurance predators. Civilized species didn't have the capability to cause harm with their bare hands. Orla turned and walked away. In 0.6 G, each step took her 3 meters. Behind her, she heard Kale's friends helping him up, heard the whispers starting, heard the confirmation of everything they'd believed about Deathworlders. Violent, dangerous, barely controlled. She made it to the locker room before the shaking started. The station's observation deck was deserted at 300 hours. Orla pressed her forehead against the transparent aluminum, watching. Storms rage in bands of amber and crimson. Beautiful, deadly. No human could survive in that atmosphere for more than seconds. I'm sorry. Orla turned. Daniel stood in the doorway, his hands in his pockets, his posture uncertain in a way she'd never seen. For what? She asked. For calling you uncivilized, for implying you were the problem. Daniel moved closer, carefully maintaining that galactic standard distance. I watched the security footage. Kale instigated. You defended yourself. That should have been the end of it. But it's not. It never is. Orla turned back to the window. Because I'm from Earth. Because my planet tried to kill my ancestors every single day, and the only ones who survived were the ones who could fight back. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, Mars isn't easy either. The radiation, the cold, the constant threat of equipment failure. He paused. But you're right, it's not the same. I've never experienced real weather, real gravity, real danger from the environment itself. Why are you here? Orla asked. Because I saw your astrophysics score. You're the top student in our year, top 5 in the entire academy, and I saw how you held back in the gymnasium, the fine motor control required to catch Kale without breaking anything. Daniel shook his head. That's not barbarism, that's incredible precision. Orla felt something unknot in her chest. They'll never see it that way. Some won't, but some might. Daniel moved to stand beside her, watching the gas giant's fury. There are 300 human colonies now. Most of them are on stations or low-gravity worlds. But Earth still produces the best engineers, the best doctors, the best emergency responders. You know why? Because we grew up in hell. Because you grew up solving problems that would kill anyone else. Because your normal is everyone else's worst-case scenario. Daniel finally looked at her. They bully you because you scare them, but maybe instead of hiding what you are, you show them why Earth-born humans are valuable. Orla considered this. How? Professor Thrix's astrophysics competition is next month. Team event. I need a partner. Daniel held out his hand. Want to show them what a Deathworlder can do when she's not holding back. Orla looked at his hand, at his face, at the determination in his eyes. She shook his hand, gently. Let's win this thing. 3 months later, Orla Chen and Daniel Marsh took first place in the Zenith Academy's astrophysics competition, solving a navigation problem that required calculations in a simulated 2.5G environment while processing multiple gravitational variables. The other teams, working in their comfortable 0.6G, couldn't match the computational speed of a brain that had evolved to function under Earth's crushing gravity. Kale didn't apologize, but he stopped calling her Deathworlder. And when the Academy announced its first deep space exploration team, a mission to survey a newly discovered high-gravity planet, they requested someone who could survive what would kill most species. Orla raised her hand. This time everyone noticed.